Good afternoon. I'm John Harrington, the Chief of Police for the City of St. Paul, and I want to welcome you all to the Western District, one of the proud accomplishments we've had. It's one of the first, I think only, environmentally friendly buildings, I think, that has ever been designed for a police department. And, this community room was very specifically designed for meetings just like this. We are pleased to come together today to recognize the service of members of our community. I've said for a long time, long before I became chief, that the secret to the success of the St. Paul Police Department is that we have great citizens. We have great allies, some in uniform, sometimes not in uniform, but always, and I really do mean this, always willing to step up above and beyond the call of duty when St. Paul Police need help. Or when anybody in the city needs help. It is truly one of the things that makes St. Paul a great place not just to work, but a great place to live and a great place to raise our families. Today we're going to recognize 4 different incidents where St. Paul citizens came to our aid or came to the aid of fellow citizens. And once again, it epitomizes what I tell my cops all the time. We can't do this alone. We have a great department. It's absolutely phenomenal what we do. But truly, if it was not for the citizens of St. Paul, none of the good things that happen here would happen. So we're going to start out with Daniel Acey, or Danielle Acey, right? Danielle? Got it. Okay. Barry Gustafson, and the parents of Kyle Smissig. Would you come up, please? Now, this award is in recognition of a water rescue. And for those of you that know the river, especially in this last year when we've had the floods and we've seen literally trees and boats and houses seemingly floating down river, you all can recognize how treacherous working on the river is. Well, fortunately, on April 26, 2009, 4 individuals, the members of the University of St. Thomas Rowing Club and the Minneapolis Rowing Club, were out working on the Mississippi. If those of you that know crew people know that they're some of the toughest individuals in the world anyway. They're strong and tough, and they don't give up at all. And while they were out on the Mississippi, they heard a voice yelling from the cliff area. And the voice was telling that there and a friend, the 2 people had been literally washed out into the Mississippi. And the river was running fast. It was a stormy, nasty, rainy day with bad weather, slippery conditions, and they very quickly leaped into action. Literally grabbing 2 boats, they set out to try and figure out where that voice was coming from. And despite awful weather conditions, bad high water, and not really a great point to start the search from, for 20 minutes, they didn't give up. They kept searching, they kept looking, until eventually they were able to find one of the individuals who had been swept out. If they do not find that individual, he's going to be downriver and pummeled and beat up in a way that we don't even want to think about. But they did find him after 20 minutes. And not only did they find him, but miraculously enough, even after being in the water for 20 minutes, they were able to bring him on board, do CPR, and get a faint pulse so that when they turned him over to the St. Paul Fire Department, this individual had a very slim chance at being able to maintain life. But they gave him a chance of a lifetime. And so we are incredibly proud to recognize these very, very brave individuals with the St. Paul Police Department's Medal of Valor. Are you the dad? I'm Barry. Oh, Barry, okay. So. Your ribbons. So this must be the dad. We appreciate it. Sorry he's doing this raps today, but we appreciate his diligence for being a part of this. So, thank you. Would you like to say anything? That's okay. No? Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Would Christopher Newman come forward? And if Officer Stiff is around, would you come up, could you limp up here and join us? So. Back in my younger days, working on the east side of St. Paul, I can remember an awful night up on Mounds Boulevard where I had arrested a drunk who had been riding a mini bike down the bluffs in Mounds Boulevard, and I grabbed him and stuffed him in the back seat of my squad car, and being young and dumb, I didn't handcuff him, and the mini bike that I stuffed in the back seat was leaking gas. And when I grabbed him to take him out of the squad car, I got knocked on my butt, and the fight was on, and we're out there in the middle of the muck trying to figure out who's going to win this fight. And on that night, the reason I'm still here to talk about it is that two St. Paulites stepped up, grabbed him, stuffed him back in the squad car for me so I could catch a breath and put the fire in my back seat out. This circumstance is very similar to that. On June 29, 2009, Mr. Newman was driving on Arcade Street near Geranium when he saw Officer Jeff Stiff struggling with a man. Now, if you look at Officer Stiff here, it is hard to picture that Jeff Stiff has ever had to struggle with anybody, frankly. I played hockey with Jeff Stiff, and he is one of the toughest young men that I probably have ever had a chance to meet. He's in phenomenal great shape, but on this particular night, in the search for and the chase to get his bad guy, he had blown a knee out and literally was working off of one leg in great pain, and was just, the fight was going to get taken to him. We know from research and we know from past history that when a cop's down, when he's not able to be fully engaged, not able to use all of their tools, the chances for that cop to get stomped, to have their gun taken, and to have really the ultimate tragedy take place is all too often, it all too often happens. But in St. Paul, that doesn't happen very often, and we're fortunate that on this particular day, Mr. Newman saw the officer struggling with this individual and literally, without hesitation, ran to assist him. Now, lots of folks might have just picked up the phone and dialed 911, and that would have been a fine thing to do too. But in this situation, minutes count. And if Mr. Newman had not jumped in, we may not have, Mr. Stiff would not have been here at this time, and we might not have got our bad guy. But Mr. Newman not only jumped out of the car to render assistance, he jumped literally into the fray, jumping on the guy's back, kneeling on his back, holding him down. And once again, it's hard to picture Officer Stiff having to ask this question, but when it came right down to it, since he couldn't get the handcuffs on him, Mr. Newman got the handcuffs on him. I want you to think about that. I mean, this is not something he trained for. This is not something I bet he was planning on that day when he started his journey. But we are very, very fortunate that Mr. Newman was in the right place at the right time and willing to do the right thing without having to be told. And so it is with great pride that we award him the Chief's Medal of Valor today.
I'd like to take the mic from the chief. I do want to thank Chris personally. My main concern after I got hurt was make sure we get the name of that guy. I wanted to know who it was. In patrol, you kind of go through some ups and downs. Sometimes you get a little disgruntled. You lose your faith in people. And definitely that day, Chris brought it back. So I just want to say thanks.
Our third award winner could not be with us at this time, but I do want to read the citation for Sarah Hedberg because I think it really speaks once again to the care that St. Paulites give to their community and their willingness to put themselves out. On May 25th, 2009, over at Michael's Pizza, Sarah Hedberg witnessed an assault and a robbery. And for those of us that have elderly parents, I think we can all relate to this. The victim in this case was a frail 80-year-old man. He had been tossed around by a much larger, younger man in the parking lot. He had been beaten. He had been kicked. And to give you some sense of the savagery of the individual who committed this act, he had his wallet taken and had his rosary and his religious medallions taken from him. I mean, it's hard for me to picture what kind of an animal does that to an 80-year-old man, but we had, unfortunately, one of those in our city at that particular time. Ms. Hedberg, because she was observant and because she cares about her community and takes note of the things around her, had noticed that there were a couple of people sitting in a car that seemed a little odd. Good situational awareness, most cops have it. We're happy that Ms. Hedberg had it in this case. A few minutes after the assault, Ms. Hedberg was wound out about the assault and literally quickly is on the phone and not just calling 911 in a panic, but has the presence of mind to give a detailed and thorough description. It is because of that description we were able to locate the individuals that were in that car, arrest the bad guy who had assaulted that man, and bring them to justice. And we could not have done that without Sarah Hedberg's help. And while she is not here today, we will be making sure that she is well aware that she has been awarded a Chief's Award, because we believe her conduct really exemplifies what we want out of all St. Paulites. Great vigilance and the willingness to help. So let me thank her all once again. Last but not least, and this may come under the category of, it seems like this is a little tardy in the awarding, but I don't think that was totally our fault in this case. Would Colonel Michael Huddleston, Kurt Skog, Steve Shoemaker, Darren Skopek, and Paul Adamson come on up? And I said this is a little late because this one dates back to a day that I'll never forget, and no other St. Paul cop that was working on that day will ever forget it. It dates back to May 6, 2005, the day we lost Jerry Vick. On that morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, I can remember vividly being called by Mike Moorhead at the Watch Commander's office and being told that one of ours had been shot, and then the call back a couple of minutes later that everybody dreads that's ever worn a uniform and a badge when they said that Jerry wasn't going to make it. Bill Martinez, the senior commander from East, rolled in. Everybody rolled in Mach 1. It was the most amazing grouping of police service I've ever seen, as everyone just self-deployed and came in to take whatever steps possible to help Jerry to bring the bad guys to justice. And as we were beginning our search, one of the things that we recognized is that we needed aerial support. Now, normally in St. Paul, we don't have a helicopter. We're not that big, and neither does Minneapolis, so they can't brag that much about it, frankly. We depend on other agencies. We depend on partners to work with us to supply those things that we don't have and that we usually don't use on a regular basis. And so we called the Minnesota State Patrol, which was our normal first call for help for aerial support. And that particular night, at that particular moment, their chopper was down. They offered to have a call up to Brainerd to get another chopper, a fixed-wing aircraft, and that one wasn't ready to roll, and we wanted somebody in the air immediately. And we made the phone call that was necessary. We called the mayor called the governor called the general, and within, literally, those kind of phone calls take seconds. Within, really, it seemed like minutes, we were being told that the Minnesota National Guard was, in fact, going to be up in the air for us, doing the aerial search, the item search, helping us make sure that the huge cordon that we had put around that neighborhood to make sure that the bad guys did not escape, that cordon was maintained, and that evidence and suspects and witnesses could be identified from the air. Now, one of the things that we didn't realize at the time we made that call is that their communication system and our communication systems didn't talk to each other very well. But one of the blessings, if there was a blessing out of Jerry's passing, is that has now been corrected. And that now, if we ever need them, we can talk. They can be patched into our radio system, and we can communicate just as if we're in the room together. At that time, though, I'm not sure if it was Sergeant Axel Henry yet or not, was detailed to get his butt down to Holman Field and to get on a chopper and get up in the air so that we could make that communication work. We were able to find the individual that shot and killed Jerry Vick. We were able to maintain our perimeter that morning. We were able to do everything we needed to do, and we could not have done it if it was not for the aerial support. We would have missed things. We would have overlooked things if we had not had their support. And so we are very, very grateful to be able to award these individuals this Chief's recognition. Now, I say this is a little late, and it is a little late because 2006 has come and gone, or 2005 has come and gone a few years in the past. But these individuals, on top of being heroic on that particular moment, then really were heroes as they went and served our country overseas in hostile combat. And so while we would have loved to have given them their awards sooner, there was no trip for us to Iraq or Iran to give it to them at that time, and so we're making up for lost time by giving it to them today. Colonel Huddleston? Do you like to say anything?
No, just here to help.
Please take a moment to thank the folks that we in the St. Paul Police Department thank. We could not do it without you, and we really, really appreciate everything that you do to make our city safe. God bless.